Hello crafty friends, welcome back to my channel. Today we will be using a set of layering stencils along with a color combination that I personally have never tried before to create a very beautiful and impactful background, perfect for Valentine's Day, paired with a stunning sentiment which will also be the focal point for our card today. All the products that I've used in today's video are part of the latest to be loved release by Simon System. Before we take a look at the card project, I would really appreciate if you could take a minute to subscribe to my channel and hit the bell icon to get notified every time I post a new video. For our background, we will be using the Funky Hearts stencil, which is part of the latest release. Now, this is a love themed set which includes four 6x6 inch stencils, which creates a grid pattern along with the funky hearts that will be nestled into each of those grids. Now the packaging here shows exactly how it would look when you layer all of the four stencils together, which is exactly what we will be doing for our card today. You could also use these stencils separate, wherein you could create only the grids or use just the heart stencils by themselves without any layering. But as our title suggests, we will be using all of the four stencils to create an impactful background. Here you'll see how beautifully these hearts nestle over each of these stencils. And well, both of those grid stencils also act as masks for each other. To ink blend over my background, I have an A2 size white note card, which I will be placing over the Simon Says sticky mat. This sticky mat will ensure that my cardstock stays in place while I ink blend through all of the four layers. For my colors, I will be using a beautiful pink and peach combination, which is something that I have never tried before. And I was really excited to work with these colors. I have carnation, watermelon, cheeky, and blush from the Positively Saturated ink line. I will get started with the first layer. I have the lighter shade of pink, which is carnation, and I will ink blend using this color onto each of those grid boxes. Now note that the sticky mat not just holds my cardstock in place, but also makes sure that my stencil doesn't move while I'm ink blending. Now this sticky mat comes with two acetate sheets, which are like the protective covering layer of on the sticky mat, which goes on the front and the back of the mat. I like to keep the acetate sheet on the back of this mat, which makes it easier to turn around the cardstock when I'm ink blending. This, I feel, gives a lot more control on the amount of ink that I put as compared to if the mat was stuck onto my work surface. Now, once I'm satisfied with the ink blending, I will carefully peel out the stencil, making sure that my cardstock remains in place. I like to hold on to one end of the cardstock. Here I'm holding on to one of those colored grids just so that I don't smudge any of that pink ink into the white grids. I will then carefully place the second grid stencil, making sure that I carefully line and mask all of those grid lines. And using cheeky shade, I ink blend onto the second stencil just like I did before. Now, usually when I'm working with shades of pink, I would either go with a green or a yellow combination. But this is the first time that I'm using peach tones. I feel that the pink peach color palette is a very delightful blend of the soft pink and the warm peach tones, perfect for creating an inviting and cheerful design. This palette definitely adds a touch of elegance and warmth to my project. Once I peel off the stencil, you can see how beautiful this background already looks. Now you could leave this background here and add a focal point and leave it right there. But we are creating a funky Valentine card project with those funky little hearts that will nestle themselves into these grids. Now let's move on to our third layer, which will be the heart layer. Now I will start with one of those pink grids. Now remember, I used carnation ink for my pink grid. This was a lighter shade of pink that I used. For my hearts, I will have the darkest shade, which is watermelon. I will ink blend it into each of these hearts, making sure that I have enough saturation of color so that the watermelon pink heart stands out against the light carnation pink grids. You could definitely play with the shades of colors here. You could use light, medium, and dark shades of pink or create an ombre effect for more depth and dimension on these hearts. But I'm creating a very simple and basic layering stencil background, so I kept the ink blending to the minimum with just one color for each layer of the stencil. Now, before I peel off the stencil, we will add some shine to these hearts. Since I wanted sparkle only on the hearts and not on the grids, I decided to leave the stencil on while I use my shimmer mist on this background. Once I've sprayed the entire panel, I will carefully peel out the stencil, making sure that the mist does not bleed into the grid. I will let all of that shimmer mist completely dry before adding the fourth layer of stencil. I did clean my sticky mat using a wet microfiber cloth before all that sparkle and glitter could dry. Now for the final layer of hearts, I will be using the darker shade of peach. Well, I'm not sure if you'd call it peach or orange, but this definitely is one of my favorite colors in the positively saturated ink line. It's called blush. Now this is slightly darker than cheeky, which is what we use to ink blend on the grids. Once I was done ink blending on the hearts, I repeated the same shimmer mist spray on this layer as well. So basically, all the hearts you see on this background have shine and sparkle, while the grids have a more matted look. While my panel dries, I will work on my sentiment. I'm using the Groovy Love You More word and shadow die, which again is part of the new To Be Loved release by Simon System. I really love the font on the sentiment. Now, whenever I'm adding a sentiment as the main focal point of my card, I not only want my sentiment to stand out, but also make sure that it doesn't cover my background. To add dimension to my sentiment, I went ahead and cut the words Love You More three times using some black cardstock. And then using Barely Arts glue, I adhered all of these sentiment pieces together. Note that these sentiments come in small, tiny pieces. We have L, M, and Y. Then we have OVE for love, OU for you, OR, and E for more. All of these pieces are very easy to assemble to create a beautiful sentiment. Now, like I mentioned, even though this sentiment is a focal point of our card today, I didn't want to cover the entire background with it. Also, making sure that my sentiment stands out in front of that busy background. So instead of using a solid color cardstock, I used vellum for my shadow layer. Well, not only it adds backing to our sentiment, but it also makes sure that this beautiful background is not covered. Now that my background panel and the sentiment are ready, it's time to assemble them onto a card front. Using some double-sided foam tape, I adhered the background panel onto a top-folded A2 size white card base. Using some liquid glue, I adhered the sentiment onto the center of this panel. Now, it was at this point that I realized that I missed the heart on one of those grids. Well, this might be a mistake, but why not take advantage of that mistake? So what I did here was added three little heart sequins to cover up that grid, which not only covers my mistake, but also adds a touch of sequin love to my card. Using my Spectrum Noir glitter brush pen, I added sparkle on the sentiments as well. Now, since I layered up the sentiment, I love the dimensional look it has. You could also add tiny little foam squares to pop up your sentiment, but I feel adding layers gives it a cleaner look. Now, here's a look at the finished card. Well, not exactly finished. If you see the final pictures, you'll notice that I added some white gel pen markings around my hearts and the sentiment. I love how beautiful this project turned out. I'm really happy with the choice of colors, and I will definitely be using the pink and the peach palette for future projects. And I think this combination is absolutely beautiful and elegant for not just Valentine's Day cards, but also for so many different occasions. Well, thank you for joining me today. I hope you had fun watching today's video and got inspired. All the supplies that I used in today's video will be linked down in the description box below. Note that all of these links are affiliate links, which means that when you shop using one of my links, I get a small commission at no cost to you guys. Don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to my channel. That really helps me a lot. Thank you for joining me today. Until next time, stay safe.